Pietman Roos, he's a senior policy consultant at SACCI, joins us now on the line to weigh in on the minister's speech. Pietman, good to speak to you today. Maybe let's pick up with the opening line, which did refer to growth being revised downwards to 1.4%, while in line with the IMF's expectations as well. But surely this shouldn't bode well for anyone who's doing business in South Africa, especially as this raises concerns regarding credit ratings on the country, as well as how to help spur growth.
Yeah, the reality is not always that welcome, but I think we need to look it in the face and be aware of the challenges. We know why the growth has been revised downward, and that's because one of the most important sectors of the economy has been out of operation for pretty much half the year.
Just on that then, from SACCI's perspective, how the growth figures really impact on the creation of a commercial environment in South Africa. Does this depress your outlook as well going forward?
No, absolutely. I think the interesting thing with investment and your GDP growth is it's a chicken and egg situation. So you need a strong GDP to attract investment, but similarly, you need investment to grow your economy. But I think the right thing was done yesterday by signaling to the market that the fiscal authorities are serious about consolidation. That is perhaps the most important thing that government can do at this stage to fix the GDP. That's the high-level structural things they can do. Investors also look for stability. So yes, growth might not be as good as it should be, but stability is a big factor, and making sure that South Africa is in a sustainable fiscal path is a very important, if not the most important part of the fiscal policy.
Now that might change, Pietman, as next year, February, we will get word as to what the Davis Tax Committee has decided with regard to potential changes in South Africa's tax streams. Is this another area of nervousness for your colleagues in the industry?
I think there is a nervousness around the possibility that the Davis Tax Commission might suggest new taxes. But it's also, if you look at their mandate, it is a more instrumental kind of focus. So they're looking at tax administration, and they also have, well, I see a tax-neutral kind of approach. So when they say introduce a new tax or change a tax, they also say take away the countervailing tax or the tax that used to be there. The only publication that I've seen from them is the SME interim report, and that was very even-handed. Even though we don't support it in full, but we support it in principle, most of the suggestions they made.
The view on African Bank that the good part of ABLE might return to relisting in the early part of next year. Many people have commended this as a signal of confidence that when the private sector steps in together with government, that a positive resolution can be found.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at our recent history, South Africa has an amazingly stable banking sector. We went through the international credit crisis with very little impact on our credit ratings or on our JIBAR, and it's because the registrar of the banks and the banks work together. So, you know, the fact that we were able to save African Bank and that it can look at relisting is definitely an indication that government and business can work together.
Just on state-owned entities, again, does this come as a sore point for those in the private sector who see the ailing conditions of the state-owned entities that were listed like Eskom and the SAA?
I think the indication that the government wants to sell 20 billion worth of state assets is a privatization and small, and also a good thing because it will focus the government's resources on key utilities like Eskom and the such. But you know, when you do sell something that's as big, you need to be aware that there are design issues involved. Not to introduce monopoly pricing, not to introduce the problem. So in any monopoly, whether it's run by government or the private sector, regulation is very important, and the details needs to make sure that you don't have a predacious system.
Just to close off with, Pietman, are you left feeling slightly more confident following the minister's speech yesterday from SACCI's perspective?
Absolutely. I think the fact that the minister sets out to manage the public sector wage bill is very positive. If he can do that, he would have accomplished much more than many other ministers. So I really hope that he can follow through on his commitment.